This is our first 1QB rookie mock of the year. You will not believe where Michael Mayer went. With that being said, number 1 overall, Bijan Robinson from Texas. Craig, take it away.
As far as you can get a consensus in fantasy football, he's your consensus 101 for rookie drafts. He's been the way since he started playing at Texas. The guy can do it all. He's got the size, he's got the production. There's isn't a whole lot else to say about him, but I would be ecstatic to get him at 101 in a league.
Absolutely. At the 2 spot, Jahmyr Gibbs, kind of the next man up, a PPR monster, which is what you're looking for when you draft a running back. Is Gibbs your number 2 running back?
He is. He's got that skill set as a receiver that is so important for today's NFL. I don't remember who said it because all of my information pretty comes from Twitter and all that sort of stuff. When you're talking about value-wise, a catch is worth almost double that a rush attempt is. Rush is in today's NFL just the way that most leagues are PPR and scoring works. And Gibbs certainly can be a guy that can get the ball in his hands and be a guy that gets Darren Sproles, Reggie Bush, Alvin Kamara, at their peak once he gets their type of reception volume in today's NFL. So I like him a lot, and I love seeing him here.
All right. JSN, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the number 1 wide receiver here because Des picked him. This will vary from our Superflex mock. We had Quintin Johnston here at the number 1 receiver position, but JSN is a guy that, obviously we didn't see a ton of him this year, but he had some monster play beforehand. And even this year when he was electric. JSN, how do you feel about him? And is he your top receiver? And do you draft a top receiver in the top 3?
Boy, it'd be tough. I'd probably still, just based on how I have it right now, take a running back at this point. There's 3 running backs that I like. There's probably 4 or 5 running backs that I really feel comfortable with, at this point in the game. JSN, I believe in my rankings, I actually have him 3rd out of the wide receivers that we're going to be talking about, I think, early on here. The first 3 that go here, but there's nothing wrong with him in terms of what he's done at Ohio State. The guy is great at separation. Now, he doesn't have that sort of top-end speed that some people like to see, but he has a great route running ability. He knows where to go to get open for the quarterback. Great at catching. He has everything that you want, sort of, except just that top-end speed, so I don't have a problem with him going here.
Next up, I pivoted. Quintin Johnston was our top receiver in the Superflex. He isn't in the top 2 here because I went Jordan Addison. I really like this kid from USC. His route running ability, what he can do before he catches the ball is really fun to watch. And I think as long as he can stay healthy and get into a system that's going to give him a good amount of volume, I think he could be a really nice fantasy producer in year 1. I'm with you, though. In 1 QB situations, you almost always see running back go way too early. Like tons of running backs go early because everybody's looking for that next big running back. I think 2 go. Probably 3 or 4 go in the first round, maybe even a 5th one if people really get excited about somebody like a Chase Brown or somebody. I know that we'll see a few running backs go in this one as well, but I had to jump on the Jordan Addison bandwagon. Over at 5, you went Kendre Miller from TCU.
Yeah, once Zach Evans left there, he really showed what he is going to be able to do in today's NFL. He was in that offense at TCU. Shocked a lot of people. The quarterback play was a lot better than it had been, and that offense really took off as a part of that. And Kendre Miller just being a top-end running back for them, he moved up a lot for people. He's got good size, like 6 foot, 220, and he averages over 3.5 yards after contact per attempt. Great agility. He's got the footwork. He's got the moves. Amazing level of contact, and he's just able to also use that speed, not the top speed in the NFL, but good speed, to be able to break off those long runs. He can sort of do it all. He just doesn't have the resume really of the top 2 running backs here, but he is my number 3 at this point.
Next up, Cody went with a curveball, Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. This is an interesting one. As a Michigan guy, I saw plenty of Zach Charbonnet for a while there, and I liked him. Michigan wasn't ready for his type of skill set, but he went to UCLA and really kind of revitalized his college career and really should be in consideration. He'll probably be kind of in the top 4 or 5 rounds, I would think. Running backs we typically see in the NFL draft slip a little bit. But in fantasy, he could be, in consideration for a 1st or 2nd round valuation, depending on when your league is drafting. If you draft before the NFL draft, it would not surprise me if somebody took him here. What do you think about Charbonnet?
Well, he's a guy that I have in the W League that we're in together, and I tried to pawn him off on you. Sort of when he was at Michigan and you didn't have a whole lot of interest in him, but he did sort of, revitalize his career. It's one of those rare moves where it kind of feels like it was best for Michigan and best for him at that point that they both moved on. And he's going to be one of those guys that's really interesting just to see where he goes. You know, is he going to end up with that top 3 round draft capital today's NFL with how they're viewing running backs? You know, we see the injuries that these guys are getting. We're seeing that these other backups, replacements just come in and a lot of times are able to be productive. So how much are they valuing running backs these days? You know, I think the days of Ezekiel Elliott going top 5 by and large, not going to be happening as much anymore, and pushes some of these sort of other guys down. But then if he goes to a situation sort of like James Cook with Buffalo last year, you know, there's going to be excitement when people see a running back with a quality skill set and the potential for playing time. I'm not comfortable taking him this high, but again, that's why we have 4 different people doing it. You get different streams of thought, and we fun, as you said, to see how this all pans out going into next year.
7, we do see Quintin Johnston go. So we talked about him significantly. If you want to hear more information about him, check out the Superflex mock. Quintin Johnston is a big guy, 6'3", 6'4", got big playability, drops work in the conversation. He's a really interesting prospect. People in the fantasy space will love him just because of that size, speed profile. At 8, I went with my man, Michael Mayer. I've been on this guy in Devy for years. I think I've had him on Devy rosters for up to 2.5 years, 3 years, something like that, because he's a mismatch nightmare. I know Notre Dame somehow just always produces really nice tight ends. This guy's it. He's got great hands. He's a great blocker, so he can do it all. A team is going to draft him, and he'll start from day one. I'm almost 100% guaranteed to see that, especially the way NFL tight ends have been this year. I mean, it's been just a wasteland outside of the top few. Craig, any thoughts on a tight end in the middle part of the first round of a rookie draft?
You know, historically, I've been fine with it if you have that top guy that you think he's going to be something very valuable right off the bat. The only thing for me is, you know, how patient are you going to be waiting for the tight end to come around? Because as much excitement as there always feels like there is over the top 1 or 2 tight ends, generally speaking, we see it takes still more so than wide receivers. It feels like a couple of years for these guys to pan out. Are you going to be fine with sitting with him if he's getting some playing time, or if he's behind a guy sort of seeing the field? Trey McBride this past year, he's getting the shot there with Zach Ertz out. There's been some other issues with Arizona, but really hasn't seen a whole lot, even though he's the quote-unquote starter now. So I'm generally probably not taking him at this point, but I see why people are. But again, for me, it's how long do I want to sit holding on to him and waiting for him to pan out?
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm with you on that one. I don't normally take tight ends unless I really love the tight end at this part of the draft. Zach Evans. So he left TCU, went to Ole Miss. You like Zach Evans, so talk about him.
Yeah, you know, he's still got a high amount of talent. One of the big things with him is maturity. Is he going to be a guy that's able to get his act together when he's around professionals in the NFL, or is he going to continue to sort of cause trouble, so to speak? Not like big trouble, you know, going out there, but just little stuff, not making up your mind on what you're doing. He wasn't even the best running back on his team as far as Judkins, I think. They got to wait a few years for him when he had been at Ole Miss. But he was a former 5-star recruit, so he's got all the talent in the world. He's got great speed, too. He's put up some great games. I think it's going to matter scheme a lot for him what he turns into and just the team that's around him, because if he goes to a young team without a lot of maturity, it could get lost in some stuff. Maybe it doesn't pan out. But talent is certainly there. There's no question for me about that.
Agreed. All right, 10. We see another running back. This is now 2, 4, 6 running backs in the first round. Chase Brown from Illinois. I think he's a really talented running back from Illinois. I think he brings a lot to the table and could certainly be a guy worthy of first-round fantasy consideration. You know, with these running backs outside of the top 2, landing spot will be a huge determining factor as to how they get slotted. We saw it in this year's draft. Guys slid down a little that didn't necessarily go to a spot that people favored, but some of these fantasy producers this year have been all over the place. I mean, think about a guy like Zonovan Knight, who went to the Jets. I mean, nobody anticipated him having value, and then all of a sudden, as you're pushing the playoffs, he's, you know, significantly more valuable now than he was at draft time. At the 11th spot, we see Josh Downs, wide receiver from UNC. Talk a little bit about Josh Downs and what you do or don't like about him.
So he's been really productive in his career at college, which is great to see. You look at sort of just the stats that he's put up, but also just the ability to get open, be able to catch the ball consistently. He's a name that had been popular last year, but even with missing a few games this year, he still had a really nice year as far as stats and was able to produce. Great route runner, mainly plays out of the slot, which is probably what he's going to be at the NFL with his size, about 5'10". 180, something like that. Great route runner. How's he going to hold up against physical corners? We're going to see. But again, if you're able to get that separation off the ball, he's got that footwork and agility to get himself open and catch the ball. So I think in today's NFL, especially where teams are again using 3 or 4 wide receivers more, and that slot matters a lot, he could be a really productive NFL receiver for a long time.
100%. All right, I rounded out pick 12. Same as the super flex, Sean Tucker, running back, Syracuse. I love this kid. I mean, I know we talked about in the other one, that big physical, 5'10", well over 200 pounds. They used him as a featured back, and I think in the NFL, he could be a featured back as well. The one thing we'll want to see is the pass catching, right? Like, of the guys that are on this list, he wasn't used nearly as much as some of these other guys in the pass catching game, so people will have concerns about that. I love the physical running style, and I have no problem taking this guy back half first, early second, somewhere in there. If I can get him, I'm really excited about that spot. Hey, don't forget, watch our first Superflex rookie mock right here.